There's a reason they're looking for you again, Scorpio. They lost you once, and now they're haunted by the silence, the absence, the echo of everything you brought into their life that they never truly understood until you were gone. But what they don't realize is this: you're no longer the same soul they remember. This isn't the version of you that gave chance after chance. This isn't the version of you that forgave without being asked. And this definitely isn't the version of you that stayed silent just to keep the peace. Scorpio, this is a spiritual moment, not just for them, but for you. Because this time when they knock, you might still open the door, but what they'll find is not the version they think they left behind. You are the phoenix, and the ashes they left you in have become your crown. So sit with me now. Because Spirit has a message, not about them, but about the part of you that no longer fears being seen in your full power. And by the end of this message, you'll understand why they want you back so desperately and why it's the greatest compliment that they'll never admit. Let's begin. Part 1. They lost you. And that's when your transformation began, when they lost you. Scorpio, they thought you would break. They assumed you'd collapse into the void they left behind, crumble beneath the silence, and beg for closure that never came. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. Because when a Scorpio is wounded, they don't bleed forever. They don't stay in grief, they resurrect. What they didn't realize is that losing you wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your becoming. You see, Scorpio, no one sees the sacred fire inside you, not until they try to put it out, not until they ghost you, not until they lie to you, not until they think they've won, and you disappear. But you weren't gone, you were changing. They thought you were vanishing, but really, you were going inward. And in that silence, while they were out pretending you never existed, you were building something ancient: power, clarity, and self-trust. Because that's what Scorpio does. We go into the dark and we come out with diamonds. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped begging for energy that never matched yours. And little by little, you started remembering who you were before they tried to tame you. And let's be honest, some of them didn't walk away. They just stopped showing up. They drifted. They avoided accountability. They let you carry the emotional weight alone. And you carried it until you didn't. You woke up one morning and said, I can't be the one who saves this anymore. And that was the moment, the sacred moment, when you stopped surviving for others and started living for yourself. You see, Scorpio, they didn't just lose you, they lost the only person who could love them beyond the surface. They lost someone who saw their soul before they were ready to meet it. And now they look for your energy in people who don't carry your frequency. They try to recreate the magic you made without the wand you hold. They chase shadows of you, but the truth is, you're not even in the same realm anymore. Because you didn't just walk away from them, you walked into yourself. And that's the kind of loss no one ever recovers from. Life lesson part 1. Sometimes the people who walk away are just making space for you to return to yourself. Not everyone who exits your life is your enemy. Some are just mirrors showing you where you've been giving too much. Their absence isn't rejection, it's redirection. Scorpio, your power was never in being needed. Your power was in finally seeing your own worth even when they didn't. The deepest form of healing is not revenge, it's resurrection. And you did that. Part 2. When they come back, but you're no longer the same. They always come back, don't they? Sometimes it's a text at midnight. Sometimes it's a, hey, I was just thinking about you. And sometimes it's more subtle. A like on a photo, a name that shows up in your dreams, or someone asking, have you heard from them lately? But it always happens. And when it does, there's a part of you that pauses. Not because you want them back, but because you remember the version of yourself they once knew. The soft you, the hopeful you, the you who would have dropped everything just to reply in 5 seconds flat. But now there's distance. not just in time, but in truth, because you've grown. And growth doesn't just change your surroundings, it changes your standards. The old you would have entertained the attention. The new you examines the intention. And suddenly their return isn't romantic, it's revealing. They didn't come back because they finally understand your value. They came back because they finally feel the absence of it. Let's be clear, Scorpio. You're not their comfort zone anymore. You're a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable, especially for people who've spent their whole lives avoiding their own reflection. When they come back, they don't just see you, they see who they could have become if they hadn't run. And that's the part they'll never say out loud. Because to admit that you were right, that you were the real thing, would mean admitting they weren't ready for the love you offered. And let's be honest, they weren't. Because what Scorpio offers is not surface-level affection, it's soul contact. It's full immersion. It's, I see you, and I'll still hold space for you even if your shadows terrify you. But not anymore. You've stopped setting yourself on fire to light the way for those still stuck in the dark. You no longer water connections that drain your roots. So when they return looking for the same door they once slammed shut, what they find instead is a new structure. Same address, different gates. And this time you hold the key. Because you've rebuilt yourself with stronger boundaries, cleaner energy, and a deep reverence for your own time, heart, and peace. You're not trying to prove your worth anymore. Now you simply embody it. Life lesson part 2. The universe will often send the past to test the present. Not to tempt you, but to show you how far you've come. You'll know someone's not for you anymore when their return doesn't excite you. It confirms you. Scorpio, your peace is no longer up for negotiation. Your heart is no longer a playground for unhealed souls. And your energy is no longer free to those who once misused it. You're not rejecting them, you're just protecting yourself. And that's what self-love looks like in its most evolved form. Part 3, the memories that still burn and why you had to let go. Let's not pretend it didn't hurt. Because even though you're stronger now, Scorpio, there was a time when their absence didn't feel like freedom, it felt like fire. It wasn't just the silence that stung, it was the confusion, the way they walked away without explanation, the way they rewrote the story as if your heart was disposable, the way they tried to act like you didn't matter, while secretly hoping you'd chase them anyway. And you almost did, you almost went back. Not because you were weak, but because you believed in what you felt. Because your love wasn't casual, because you don't give yourself lightly. Scorpios don't love halfway. We love like it's written in blood. We remember everything. The scent, the voice, the way they laughed when they were still honest, the way it felt to trust them even when you knew deep down something wasn't right. And those memories, they don't fade. They just stop controlling you. Because you reached a point where the pain of holding on became heavier than the fear of letting go, and that's when everything changed. Letting go wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. It wasn't giving up on them, it was choosing you. Because here's the truth, Scorpio. Some people don't leave your life, they free you. They free you from illusions, from cycles, from trauma bonds disguised as fate. From emotional bankruptcy that wore a mask of passion. You didn't let go because you stopped caring. You let go because you finally started caring about yourself more. And that's what scared them. Not your silence, not your strength, but the fact that for the first time, you no longer needed them to survive. They used to be your oxygen. Now they're just smoke. And the fire inside you, it's no longer burning for them. It's burning for you. Life lesson part 3. Not everything that sets your heart on fire is meant to stay. Some connections come to awaken you, not to accompany you forever. Love doesn't always mean keeping. Sometimes love is releasing. Letting them go to become who they need to be, and letting yourself rise into who you were always meant to become. Scorpio, never regret the love you gave. Only regret the times you gave it to someone who didn't know how to hold it. The memory might still burn, but you are no longer the one on fire. You are the one rising from the flame. Part 4. The universe sends a test. Are you ready to pass? Scorpio, the universe doesn't play games, but it does issue tests. Not to punish you, but to reveal what you've truly healed. And right now, that test has a familiar face. A voice that once made your heart skip, now makes your gut tighten. A name you tried to forget, echoing back into your life with perfect cosmic timing. You see the return of this person, this situation, this cycle. It's not an invitation, it's an opportunity. The opportunity to respond differently, to trust your growth, to see clearly what you once romanticized. Because here's what Spirit knows about Scorpio. You're a soul of extremes. When you love, it's depthless. When you hurt, it's unforgettable. But when you evolve, you never go backward. So what happens when that test shows up? When the one who ghosted suddenly wants closure? When the job that broke you suddenly wants to rehire you? When the family member who disrespected your boundaries wants to start fresh? It's tempting, not because you want to go back, but because part of you wants to prove they were wrong. You want to show them who you are now. You want to be seen in your power. You want the satisfaction of being wanted finally. But Scorpio, hear this clearly. True evolution doesn't perform. It just exists. You don't need to show them. Your peace is proof enough. Your silence speaks volumes. Your life as it stands now is already the answer to every question they were too afraid to ask. When the test comes, choose stillness over reaction. Choose wisdom over ego. Choose the future over the past dressed in nostalgia. Because this isn't about them anymore. It's about how far you've come and whether you believe you deserve the kind of love you used to beg for. Life Lesson Part 4. The universe will never tempt you with something you've truly healed from, only with what still lingers in your shadow. But you're not the same Scorpio who broke before. You're the Scorpio who knows their worth now, who chooses self-respect over attention, clarity over chaos, peace over potential. When the universe sends the test, don't panic. Just remember, you don't have to prove you've changed. You just have to keep walking forward. And that, Scorpio, is how you pass. Part 5, what they really want from you and why it's not what you think. Scorpio, when they come back, don't assume it's because they've finally realized your worth. Not at first, not completely. Because while some returns are sincere, many are not rooted in love. They're rooted in lack. Lack of direction, lack of control, lack of energy, the kind only you ever gave them. You see, when they had access to your world, they were basking in your light without ever understanding its source. They took your depth for drama, your intensity for instability, your loyalty for granted. But now they feel the absence. Now they feel the silence. And it's not peace to them, it's punishment. So they come back. But Scorpio, look closely. They're not coming back because they suddenly learned how to love. They're coming back because they can't replicate what you gave them. They've tried. They've compared. They've chased. They've wandered through connection after connection, only to realize that your love wasn't just rare, it was real. But that doesn't mean they're ready to give that same love back. Because here's the secret no one tells you. People don't always come back to love you. Sometimes they come back to feed from you. From your stability, your insight, your sensuality, your intuition, that uncanny Scorpio gift of knowing what they're not saying out loud. To them, being around you feels like returning home. But for you, being around them might feel like reopening an old wound. And the real question isn't, do they still love me? The real question is, what are they here for this time? Are they here to build or to borrow? Are they here to take accountability or to take comfort? Because Scorpio, you are no longer available for energy that only shows up when it's hungry. You are no longer a soul buffet for the emotionally starved. You are sacred, and access to you requires more than nostalgia. It requires transformation. And unless they've done that work, their presence is not reconciliation. It's repetition. Life Lesson Part 5. Just because someone returns doesn't mean they've changed. Sometimes they just miss the version of themselves they were when you loved them. But Scorpio, don't confuse your compassion with obligation. You are allowed to care without reconnecting, to understand without reopening. You've done the inner work, and your healed self no longer exists to hold space for people still avoiding their own healing. Ask yourself, do they want love, or do they just want relief from the emptiness they created? There's a difference, and you, Scorpio, can feel it. Trust that feeling. Part 6. Scorpio's power awakens. The rise of the Phoenix, Scorpio. There comes a moment when the ashes stop being a grave and become your rebirth. You've felt it, haven't you? The slow burn of something shifting inside you, the quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout, the sacred knowing that says, I've been through hell, and I didn't just survive, I transformed. This is the part of your story they never saw coming, because the last time they saw you, you were breaking, bleeding, surrendering pieces of yourself just to be understood. But now you've rebuilt yourself in silence, piece by piece, scar by scar, not as the person you were, but as the person you were always meant to become. This is what it means to be ruled by Pluto, Scorpio, the planet of death and rebirth, of destruction and resurrection, of becoming more powerful after every loss. You are the Phoenix, the sign that walks through fire and comes out brighter. You don't just endure pain, you alchemize it. What destroyed others shaped you. What they feared in you is what you finally learned to love in yourself. And now they don't know how to approach you, because the version of you they knew how to manipulate is gone. The version of you who needed answers no longer has questions. The version of you who used to beg for love now embodies it. You're not harder, you're clearer. You're not colder, you're more discerning. You're not bitter, you're awakened. And the most powerful part, you don't need them to see it. You don't need to prove anything. Because your presence alone now says, I survived you and I came back as royalty. Life Lesson Part 6. Real power doesn't roar, it radiates. It doesn't seek revenge. It creates distance and peace. The real flex isn't making them regret losing you, it's loving yourself so completely that their absence no longer hurts. Scorpio, your transformation isn't for validation, it's for liberation. This chapter is no longer about how they see you, but about how you see yourself. And when you finally rise in your own worth, no one can ever convince you to settle again. Part 7. They finally see the truth. But it's too late. It always happens like this. When you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it, that's when they wake up. That's when the silence becomes louder than your presence ever was. That's when the weight of your absence begins to suffocate them. Scorpio, it wasn't that they didn't see your value back then, it's that they didn't believe you'd ever stop giving. They thought you'd always be there, that your loyalty was endless, that your love was unconditional, even when they gave you conditions. But what they failed to understand was that your love is a gift, not a guarantee. And when that gift is mishandled, when it's taken for granted, ignored, or betrayed, it doesn't come back. Because once a Scorpio sees the truth, there's no going back to the illusion. Now, they see it. They see what you were really offering. Depth, devotion, emotional honesty, healing. They see that it wasn't drama, it was desire. It wasn't neediness, it was sacred connection. It wasn't control, it was care. But now they look at you and realize they're standing in front of a version of you that no longer asks to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And for the first time, they realize that losing you wasn't just a breakup, it was a spiritual loss. They didn't just lose your attention, they lost your loyalty, your magic, your protection, the version of you who would have fought for them even when they wouldn't fight for themselves. And that's what haunts them. Not just that you're gone, but that they know deep down they can't find you again. Not in anyone else, not in the mirror, not even in memory. Because memory is a poor replacement for presence, and you, Scorpio, are unforgettable. Life lesson, part 7. People often realize your value when they can no longer reach you, but by then, the lesson is for them, not for you. Your growth is not a punishment to others. It's the reward of choosing yourself. You don't need an apology to heal. You don't need closure to move on. Scorpio, when they finally see the truth, you'll already be living yours. And that is the sweetest piece of all. Part 8. The final truth. Love isn't about being chosen, it's about choosing yourself. Scorpio, here's what no one tells you when your heart breaks. It was never about them choosing you. It was always about you choosing you. That's the hardest truth to learn, especially for a sign like yours who loves with such depth that it borders on the eternal. You wanted to be seen. You wanted to be understood. You wanted someone to say, "You don't have to perform here. I already know who you are." And when they didn't, you thought the problem was you, but it wasn't. The problem was never that you were too much. It was that they were never enough to meet you at your depth, and still you gave them more. More time, more chances, more grace than they ever earned. Because that's who you are. But something changed, didn't it? There was a moment, a quiet, sacred moment when you realized you are not meant to chase love. You are meant to attract it by being fully yourself. And suddenly the game shifted. You stopped performing. You stopped begging. You stopped watering dead gardens hoping they'd bloom again. You started walking like you belonged in every room. You started loving yourself the way you once loved others. You started seeing your scars not as shame, but as sacred symbols of your survival. And that's when you understood something most people never will. Real love doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like alignment. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't keep you waiting. It doesn't disappear when things get inconvenient. And most importantly, real love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. So now when someone says, "I choose you," you no longer melt. You ask, "Do I choose me in your presence, or do I shrink to fit inside your comfort zone?" Because Scorpio, you've learned you don't need to be chosen anymore. You've already been claimed by the strongest version of you. Life lesson, part 8. Choosing yourself is the most radical act of love you can offer to the world, because when you do, you stop needing others to fill the void and start attracting only what honors your truth. Scorpio, you were never the one that got away. You were the one who walked away the moment you realized your heart deserved more than potential. And now, you're not waiting for love, you're embodying it. Part 9. You were never meant to be owned, you were meant to be remembered. Scorpio, this isn't a story of revenge. It's a story of rebirth. You didn't come here to stay broken. You didn't endure the silence, the betrayal, the loneliness, just to go back to who you used to be. You came here to remember who you are and to never forget it again. And the truth is, they will think of you forever. Not because you played games, not because you manipulated, but because you did something so few people do. You loved them fully. And then you left with dignity when that love was no longer honored. That's the kind of energy no one forgets. That's the kind of soul no one replaces. So let them remember you. Let them feel the absence. Let them relive the moment they realized too late that you were the real thing. Meanwhile, you'll be living, creating, loving yourself, walking with your head high and your boundaries higher, radiating power from the inside out. Because you are no longer the version of yourself who needed their love to feel whole. You are already whole. Final life lesson, part 9. Scorpio, you were never just the one who got away. You were the one they couldn't hold because you outgrew their reach. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next chapter. Some people were only meant to teach you how to return home to yourself. And now that you've come home, protect your peace, guard your energy, and never apologize for evolving. You didn't lose anything. You released what could not love you the way you now love yourself. Call to action, Dachin Sur, Kotin Ken. If this message touched something deep in you, drop A in the comments so I know you felt it. Tell me, Have you ever been the one who walked away stronger, wiser, and freer? And if you're on the path of healing transformation and becoming the highest version of yourself, subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, where Scorpio souls like you come home to truth, power, and rebirth. Because Scorpio, this is just the beginning. You haven't even seen your final form yet. You are the phoenix, and your rise, it's unstoppable.